Hey guys, this is John, and welcome to another episode of Chess Cognition. This is a game that I played in 2012 against FIDE master Konstantin Kavutskiy, and we pick up the game on move 58, where black played rook takes h5. Now, my question to you is, how should white play? If you'd like to pause your video, try to find the strongest continuation or plan for white. Okay, so in order to play endgames well, you need two things. You need general knowledge, and you need specific knowledge. An example of general knowledge is something like you should activate your king. You should strive to get your king to an active position as soon as the endgame hits. Whereas specific knowledge is something like knowing the Lucena position, knowing a exact winning or drawing procedure. So when you get a position that resembles that or is exactly that, you can win the game pretty much on autopilot. So here, I played the wrong move because I was trying to apply general knowledge to a position where really specific knowledge would have been by far the best. So I played the move rook a7. And I played this move because I wanted to prevent a typical drawing mechanism for black, and that is transferring the rook to the quote-unquote long side of the board, which just means this open space on the further side of the pawn. So black might think about playing rook b5 and then trying to check on b7. That is a legitimate concern for white from the starting position, because if black gets to check from, say, b7 or b6 or b8, white's king doesn't have a lot of shelter. So in that sense, rook a7 makes sense. However, if I would have reached into my memory banks, I should have known that putting the rook behind the pawn with rook f2 is the correct thing to do here. And this wins, as we'll see. It still allows rook b5, but the issue for black is that if they play rook b5 immediately, I leave open the option of rook h2. And the unfortunate position of black's king on the h-file does them in. They're getting checkmated next move. They'd have to play rook h5, and I take it and win. So rook f2 is a nice way to not only support the pawn's advance, but leave open the auxiliary threat of rook h2, should that black rook leave. And just to give you an example of a winning line here, let's say black plays rook h1. I can play king f8, inching forward. Let's say rook e1. Maybe black tries to cut off my king along the e-file. Here, checking wouldn't make as much of a difference because black can play king g6. But I can push the pawn, and after, let's say, rook e3 just waiting, now I can check. And on king g6, play king g8, and the white f-pawn is going through, and I win. So I didn't have much time to figure this out, but I still really wish I would have remembered this rook f2 move, because I had studied positions of this type, and I should have known that this was the way to do it. But instead, let's look at the game continuation with rook a7, because there were a couple more instructive moments in this one. So after rook a7, my opponent correctly played rook b5, and I played king e7, looking to push the pawn. I was happy because I was preventing rook b7, and I seem to be putting black in a critical position. Now I'm going to flip the board and have you assess this from the black side. So we know what white's plan is. White has just got their king out of the way of the pawn, and if black doesn't react to that, white's going to be winning in a couple more moves. So how do you think black should play? If you'd like to pause your video and try to answer that question, you can do so now. Okay, so this is another position where only precise knowledge will do. And Konstantin was very low on the clock, as was I. And unfortunately for him, he played the move king g6, but this throws away the draw. The draw could be achieved with rook b8, which is leading to a theoretically drawn position. The idea is that black is trying to control the queening square, control the f8 square. And if white pushes the pawn with f7, now black plays king g7. The king and the rook combine to prevent f8 queen, and there's no way for white to strengthen their position from here. If I try to play something like rook a1, looking to go rook g1 check, drive away the black king, and then promote the pawn, I'm going to fail because of rook b7, check, king moves, and then rook takes pawn, and after rook g1, black can just go to f8 with a draw. So Rook b8 would have held the game, and I think both my opponent and I were a little bit unfamiliar with these positions. He did remark after the game that he had looked at this previously, but it's very hard when you're under the gun and you have little time on your clock to sometimes recall positions that you previously studied. And I bet with more time, my opponent would have found the rook b8 move. After king g6, as played, here I played f7, black gave a check, and now I can play king f8. And my threat is to play king to g8 and then promote the pawn. So black must play king h7 in order to stop that. And let's flip this position back around to the white side so you're looking at it from my point of view again. So final question for this video, how should white play? Try to find the winning line for me. There's a couple ways to do this, but I think the easiest move is rook a1. Bringing the rook back and threatening rook h1 check. Trying to force the king out from the h7 square, where it's preventing king to g8. And black is losing. Note that if they play something like rook h5, trying to stop rook h1, then I can play king e7, and this pawn is going to promote. So in the game, my opponent played rook f5, looking to get behind the pawn, but I just played king e7 even in this case. They played king g7. I gave a check. King h7. Here I could have promoted the pawn, but I was a little bit worried about stalemate tricks. If f8 queen, note that if black could instantly give up their rook, it would be stalemate. So I think this would have been winning for white too. Black can give some checks and try to sacrifice the rook, but white is prevailing. But just to be safe, I played rook h1 check, king g7, and now f8 queen with check. Black took it, and I played rook g1, and this is the final straw. The king is going to be forced somewhere to the h-file, and then I can just take the rook. So my opponent resigned. So this was an example where both of us blew it, really, starting with me with the rook a7 move. But the presence of the clock and the fact that we both had very little time to figure this out kind of complicated the defense for him and also for me finding the win. But still, if you have strong, precise knowledge of various endgames, you can often save yourself a lot of trouble in these situations. And I'm sure Kostya and also myself wishes we would have had a bit more knowledge to play this more accurately, even with limited time. So to recap, the winning move from the start for white was rook f2, getting behind the pawn, and then white can inch up the board with the king, as I was illustrating. Rook h1, king f8, push the pawn, and due to black's problems on the h-file, they cannot defend. And as played after rook a7, if we flip this back around to the black side, rook here, king e7, the draw could have been achieved for black by playing rook to b8, intending f7, king g7, and controlling that queening square. So in endgames, you want to work not only on your general knowledge, which you could attain by studying games played by good endgame players, games by grandmasters, that sort of thing, but you also want to work on your specific knowledge. And that's knowledge of exact positions and what to do in them should those positions arise. For things like that, books like Jesus de la Villa's 100 Endgames You Must Know are useful. Really, any endgame textbook that has a catalog of theoretical positions, those are excellent to work through. All right, hope you guys enjoyed this example, and I'll be back again soon with another episode of Chess Cognition. Bye, guys.